Welcome back. You've arrived in the quiet again, where candlelight flickers across ancient stones and stories rise like incense from long forgotten places. Tonight's tale begins not in peace, but in waiting, not in comfort, but in absence, and not in obedience, but in longing. This is the story of the golden calf. A story of people who had seen miracles but still felt abandoned. Of a mountain covered in cloud and a leader gone too long. Of fear turned into worship. Of longing turned into idolatry. We begin in the wilderness, a place of dust and distance. Then we'll follow the story itself. As the people grow restless, as gold melts and silence is broken, we'll pause to explore the mystery. What was the golden calf? Where did the idea come from? And what does it mean to shape a god with our own hands? Then we'll contrast the noise at the base of the mountain with the thunder in the heavens. And with Moses standing between judgment and mercy, let yourself settle in as we descend the slopes of Sinai and into the hearts of a people searching for something to hold. Daily life, campfires, clouds, and the wilderness between. Imagine yourself in the wilderness. Not the green wilderness of forests or rivers, but a dry, open land, where the air shifts like a veil and the earth crunches beneath your sandals. It is quiet, but never truly still. Wind moves across the dunes, carrying dust and memory, and above you always is the cloud. The pillar that led them from Egypt still hovers in the sky, by day a guiding shade, by night a fire that flickers in silence. You are among the people of Israel, camped at the foot of Mount Sinai. The tents are many, arranged like petals around the mountain's base. There's no city here, no walls, no towers, only fabric and dust and longing. Break time equals 2 south, greater than daily life was marked by motion, even in stillness. Each morning you would rise to the sound of gathering, families collecting manna, the soft wafer-like bread that coated the ground like dew. It was quiet work, humble, done in the early light before the sun grew too harsh. Fires were kindled with careful hands, pots were placed on smooth stones, children stirred beside their mothers, and elders whispered blessings to the rising light. There were no gardens, no vineyards, only what was carried and what was given. Break time equals 2 south, greater than you would see Moses sometimes climbing the mountain, disappearing into mist. And you would wait, always wait. He had brought you out of Egypt, through parted seas and crashing waves. You saw the miracles with your own eyes, the staff turned serpent, the water from rock, the Red Sea like walls of glass on either side. But now the mountain waits too. Days pass, then weeks. The cloud at the summit pulses with light. Thunder hums like a heartbeat. But Moses does not return. Break time equals 2 south, greater than tension begins to settle in the camp. You feel it in the silence between families, and the questions pass like bread from tent to tent. How long has it been? Did something happen? Is he ever coming back? The rhythm of daily life, once shaped by Moses' leadership, begins to wobble. There are no new instructions, no fresh direction, just routine and the ache of waiting. And so people begin to look for answers elsewhere. Break time equals 2 south, greater than it begins with a conversation, A whisper, a murmur, a suggestion. If Moses is gone, then what now? They don't reject God. Not fully. They just want something they can see, something they can hold. And so a new rhythm begins, not of trust, but of gathering gold from earrings, rings, bangles, given freely, melted silently. In the very camp where manna once fell like grace, they begin to shape a new god, a god of their own making. The calf, the fire, and Moses' descent, the fire crackles. Not the fire of divine presence on the mountaintop, but the fire of impatience fed by human hands. At its center, a mold. And into it, gold flows, earrings, bracelets, family heirlooms from Egypt, melted down and reshaped into something new. A calf, a young bull, golden, polished, gleaming in the desert sun. Not a beast of burden, but a symbol. Fertility, strength, life. This is the God they now dance around. Aaron the high priest, the brother of Moses, yields to the people's demand. He builds an altar before the calf, declares a feast day, and suddenly the camp that once waited in reverent silence is filled with sound, dancing, singing, the clang of tambourines, a celebration not of freedom, but of fear masked as devotion. Break time equals 2 south, greater than. High above on Sinai, Moses still speaks with God. He holds the tablets in his hands, etched not by man, but by the very finger of the divine. Words meant to guide, to covenant, to call. But before he can bring them down, he hears something, not prayer, not battle, but revelry. God speaks first. Go down. Your people have turned aside. Break time equals 2 south, greater than Moses descends. Each step down the mountain is heavy, not with fear, but with knowing. The closer he gets, the louder the noise becomes. Not joy, but distortion. And then he sees it, the calf, the people, the chaos. He sees what they've made. And in that moment, he throws down the tablets. Stone shatters, echoes race across the plain. And the covenant symbolically is broken before it's even delivered. Break time equals 2 south, greater than he burns the calf, crushes it to powder, scatters it on water, makes the people drink it. Why? To show them what they've done, to turn a symbol of idolatry into bitter consequence. He confronts Aaron, asks, "What did these people do to you that you brought such sin upon them?" Aaron deflects, blames the fire, blames the people. But the truth remains, they could not wait, so they made. They could not see, so they shaped. Break time equals 2 south, greater than that day ends not in celebration, but in grief. Judgment falls, the camp is sobered. And Moses, he climbs the mountain again, not to receive, but to plead. He begs God for mercy. He stands between the people and their destruction, and in doing so, Moses becomes something new. Not just a leader, but an intercessor, a man who knows the weight of shattered stone and still chooses to climb again. Mystery, where did the calf come from? Geodese of Egypt, echoes of idolatry, so much gold, so much certainty. Why a calf? Why this shape, this image? The people of Israel had just left Egypt, a land steeped in symbolism, statues, and sacred beasts. In Egyptian religion, the bull was not merely an animal, it was sacred, divine, a symbol of virility, protection, and the life force of gods. Apis, the sacred bull of Memphis, was believed to carry the soul of Pta, a creator deity, strong, earthbound, present, not distant like thunderclouds, but close visible. When the Israelites shaped a golden calf, they weren't simply inventing something new. They were reaching back to what they knew, to the visual comfort of statues, to the echo of empire, to the familiar gods of their past captivity. Break time equals to south, but the mystery deepens. Because it wasn't just idolatry, it was misplaced longing. The people didn't say, let's worship a new god. They said, this is the God who brought us out of Egypt. They confused the act of God with the work of their hands. They wanted a visible symbol of an invisible deliverer, something tangible, something now. And that desire, however human, led them into shadow. Break time equals to south. There's mystery, too, in the reaction. Why did Aaron go along with it? Was it fear, people-pleasing, weakness? He collected the gold. He built the altar. He declared the feast. And later, he denied responsibility. It's a mystery of leadership. How someone chosen to be holy can still fail to be brave. How the weight of expectation can bend even the faithful. Break time equals to south, greater than, and the calf itself. It becomes more than an idol. It becomes a warning. Throughout scripture, the sin of the golden calf is remembered. A wound that reopens in later generations. A turning point. Even centuries later, when King Jeroboam fears losing the loyalty of his people, he builds 2 golden calves and tells the people again, these are your gods who brought you out of Egypt. The same story told again, the same mistake reshaped, because people forget, and when they forget, they fill the silence with gold. Break time equals to south, greater than, but in the silence, God had not left. He had simply called Moses up higher. The people feared absence, but heaven was working. And the mystery remains. What do we shape when we feel unseen? What gods do we build when we fear delay? And how often do we drink the gold we've melted? And what of the leadership below? Aaron, dressed in priestly garments, had no thunder in his voice, no strength in his stand. His priesthood was inherited. Moses' leadership was forged. One built an altar to please the people. The other shattered stone to confront their sin. It's a contrast we still see. The popular versus the prophetic, the pleasing versus the piercing. And above it all, God does not destroy them. He relents. Because of Moses, because of mercy. Break time equals to south, greater than. This episode closes with a question. What do we worship when we feel God is far? Do we build altars to convenience? Do we shape gods in our own image? Or do we wait, even when the cloud doesn't move? Even when the voice is silent? Even when the goal calls to us with its shine? Sometimes true faith is the quiet decision to stay at the foot of the mountain and not dance. And what of the leadership below? Aaron, dressed in priestly garments, had no thunder in his voice, no strength in his stand. His priesthood was inherited. Moses' leadership was forged. One built an altar to please the people, the other shattered stone to confront their sin. It's a contrast we still see. The popular versus the prophetic, the pleasing versus the piercing. And above it all, God does not destroy them. He relents. Because of Moses, because of mercy. Break time equals 2 south. Greater than this episode closes with a question. What do we worship when we feel God is far? Do we build altars to convenience? Do we shape gods in our own image? Or do we wait, even when the cloud doesn't move? Even when the voice is silent? Even when the goal calls to us with its shine? Sometimes true faith is the quiet decision to stay at the foot of the mountain and not dance. And what of the leadership below? Aaron, dressed in priestly garments, had no thunder in his voice, no strength in his stand. His priesthood was inherited. Moses' leadership was forged. One built an altar to please the people, the other shattered stone to confront their sin. It's a contrast we still see. The popular versus the prophetic, the pleasing versus the piercing. And above it all, God does not destroy them. He relents. Because of Moses, because of mercy. Break time equals 2 south. Greater than this episode closes with a question. What do we worship when we feel God is far? Do we build altars to convenience? Do we shape gods in our own image? Or do we wait, even when the cloud doesn't move? Even when the voice is silent? Even when the goal calls to us with its shine? Sometimes true faith is the quiet decision to stay at the foot of the mountain and not dance. The fire has faded now. The golden calf, once shining in the desert sun, has turned to ash, to dust, to memory. But its story remains, not as a tale of punishment, but as a mirror. A mirror for all of us who have ever grown tired of waiting, who have ever felt abandoned or afraid or unseen. A mirror for the moments we reached for something visible, because the invisible felt too far away. But even then, even when we wandered, even when we melted down our trust into things we could hold, God waited, not with rage, but with mercy. He called Moses back up the mountain. He carved new tablets. He chose to begin again. And that is the quiet rhythm of this story. Not just rebellion, but restoration. Not just idolatry, but invitation. So tonight, as you rest, let the noise of the camp grow quiet. Let the glow of false gods fade. Let your heart climb slowly, upward, inward, homeward. You don't have to shape anything tonight. You don't have to prove or perform or dance. You are already seen, already known, and even in the silence, especially in the silence, you are not alone. Sleep now under a sky more ancient than gold. Sleep in the quiet mercy of a God who still speaks, not in fire, but in stillness. And may your dreams be filled with mountains and clouds, and the peace that comes from waiting well. Good night.